Imagine you open your home freezer and find inside a bottle of water, sealed for 15 million years. Would you drink it? Would the water still be good? Like, I don't know, has it turned into a broth of mutant prehistoric bacteria? Okay. Now expand that idea. It's not a bottle, but an entire lake the size of one of the Great Lakes, hidden beneath the Antarctic ice all this time. What could be alive in there untouched since the age of dinosaurs? Come with me and I'll tell you everything about the mysteries of Lake Vostok. Hey nerd, what's up? Peter here. Well, everyone, out of nowhere, some news started to emerge right around the turn of the millennium, okay? An enormous liquid lake, completely hidden beneath 4 kilometers of solid ice, deep in the frozen heart of Antarctica, isolated from the rest of the world for at least 15 million years. An ecosystem locked in time, you know, in one of the most inhospitable regions of the planet. And that really sparked everyone's imagination, naturally. I wonder if there are unknown creatures existing deep down below. Alien microbes? Ancient monsters trapped since the Ice Age, frozen deep down below. Well, the craziest theories started to pop up, and I can guarantee you, there are many bizarre rumors surrounding this story. This is today's A-Nerd Curiosities topic, and we're also counting on your further suggestions in the comments here. This interaction is truly amazing because you're all being the pilot of this segment. You're giving us suggestions. Thanks for that. I'm already looking at the comments. Let's go. Well, Antarctica is one of the most extreme places that we've barely explored on this planet, okay? Temperatures that freeze your soul, a kilometer-thick ice sheet that might be hiding many secrets. Looking from above is just white ice as far as the eye can see, but beneath this frozen shell there are hundreds of subglacial lakes, aquatic worlds isolated from the sun and air. Science knows very little about them. In fact, we still know very little about our own planet. The oceans cover about 71% of the Earth's surface, and yet we know almost nothing of what lies in their depths. I mean, it's so very little. The most recent estimate, just look at this. The most recent estimate suggests that humanity has only explored a mere 0.001% of the ocean floor. If the ocean floor already holds such a vast mystery, just imagine a lake concealed beneath 4 kilometers of ice. If it's difficult for us to descend with a submarine in water, just imagine 4 kilometers of ice, man, for you to go down. Well then, any new discovery made beneath the Arctic ice should be welcome, shouldn't it? Well, not quite actually. Not when these discoveries end up raising far more questions than they provide answers or certainties. Not when it makes some people think of deep-sea monsters or apocalyptic viruses emerging from a place sealed since prehistory. And that's the stir Lake Vostok caused. After all, what truly exists down there in this mysterious lake? And why is it so different from everything else? Let's find out. Everything begins with the discovery itself, okay? In the 70s, a Russian researcher named Andrei Kapitsa already suspected there was something strange beneath the Vostok station. The Soviet research base was located there in the middle of the Antarctic wilderness. When he measured the ice, he detected strange echoes, as if there was a huge body of water beneath. But it was only decades later, in 1993, that satellite images confirmed it. Yes, there was a gigantic lake beneath the ice. And so, this was named Lake Vostok. And this lake measures a staggering 240 fucking kilometers in length and 50 kilometers in width, reaching a depth of 1 full kilometer. We're talking about one of the largest freshwater lakes in the entire world. And it was just sitting there, hidden, completely untouched, perhaps since the very first human ancestors learned to walk on 2 legs. How can liquid water possibly exist under so much ice? Well, it turns out that this thick glacial layer, works like a pressure blanket, because the pressure down there is so great that water's freezing point drops. Besides, the geothermal heat coming from the Earth's depths, right, slightly warms the lake bed, in other words, the heat from the Earth's core. So even with the water at minus 3 degrees Celsius, it doesn't freeze. It remains liquid. In other words, Lake Vostok is a huge pocket of super cold dark water, trapped beneath the ice since very ancient times. Without sunlight for millions and millions of years, this lake is kind of an extreme environment, practically alien here on Earth, right? And that's precisely why it awakens so much scientific curiosity, because just think about it. An ecosystem isolated for such a long time could have followed its own unique evolutionary path, completely different from everything else that exists up here. For many researchers, studying Lake Vostok is the closest we will ever get to visiting an extraterrestrial ocean, like the oceans beneath the ice of Europa, Jupiter's moon, for example. It's like exploring another planet, but right here on our own Earth. That's super cool. So scientists from all over the world were itching to drill that ice and take a peek at what was there, right? But guys, drilling almost 4 kilometers of Antarctic ice is no easy feat. It's not easy, no. Just digging a small hole in the beach sand is already tough, right? Well, the Russians had been on top of the lake unknowingly since the 50s, right? Because Vostok Station was founded right on top of it by coincidence. They'd been drilling the ice since the 80s to collect samples and study the climate of the past. When they found out about the lake back in the 90s, they stopped drilling just 120 meters from the water. They didn't want to ruin an untouched ecosystem, polluting it with drilling fluids. It took years of planning to drill cleanly without polluting that water. There was even international pressure and very strict environmental protocols because nobody wanted to turn Lake Vostok into a kerosene aquarium. No way. But in February of 2012, the Russian team announced that they had reached the surface of the lake, after 30 years of attempts. Can you believe it? Well, they used a specially developed drill with non-toxic silicone fluid, and when they got very close to the water, they stopped. The water's own pressure made a jet shoot up through the hole and freeze. This then sealed the hole. So they got a water sample from the lake that froze inside the drill, right? Without the drill itself directly touching the lake. It was a truly historic moment. The very first time humans, let's say, made contact with an Antarctic subglacial lake. Then the scientists were about to discover if within that ice sample there was any sign of life that we hadn't known before. So for months, that nagging question lingered. Did we find a new form of life on Earth or just a common microbe that snuck in, But as scientific analysis moved slowly, the public and internet had no patience, of course. You know how it is. Popular imagination was already running wild. The wild rumors really started to gain momentum. One of the most bizarre rumors was the story of organism 46b, which claimed there was a giant octopus with 14 tentacles living beneath the lake. And it didn't just stop there, okay? The conspiracy theory enthusiasts were talking about a certain magnetic anomaly detected in the lake's southeastern region. Sure enough, satellites did find an unusual magnetic reading in an area measuring approximately 105 by 75 kilometers right there near the lake. So scientists think it might just be a different geological formation of metal in the rocky soil. But for the crazy theorists out there, this could only be a secret base. Some people were claiming there was a gigantic metallic object at the bottom of Vostok, like some kind of buried alien spaceship. Unbelievable, right, man? Everything in history just spins, and always lands on what? Aliens. Every single time. It's quite impressive. Well, at times like these, people really go crazy, okay? An isolated lake, Antarctica, missing scientists. It's a perfect setup for fertile imaginations. And I'll admit, it's cool to dive into these theories for a while without refuting anything right away, just accepting it. It makes us think, what if? Don't we just love what if scenarios? What if there's really a Jurassic creature alive in that dark lake? Why are you all looking at me? Stop it, that's quite enough. Well, but now I must return to reality. What has science truly discovered about Lake Vostok until now? First of all, yes, there is life in Lake Vostok, but to our current knowledge, it's only microscopic life. No telepathic giant squids, unfortunately, we didn't find any of those. The studies primarily found extremorphal microorganisms, which are bacteria and fungi that can survive in conditions of cold, darkness, and crushing pressure. Conditions that would kill any common goldfish. In 2013, scientists detected DNA from more than 3,500 different organisms in ice samples that had formed from the lake's water. And among these, they found primarily bacteria, but also some traces of fungi, and even microorganisms that are typical of a marine environment, quite similar to those that live within the intestines of fish. This discovery then left the researchers quite confused. How could it possibly be marine if it's a lake, right? Marine is from the sea, salt water. The best explanation is that at some point in the past, Lake Vostok might have had a connection to the ocean or other water bodies, right? That would then allow certain creatures to get in. Don't forget, folks, millions of years ago, Antarctica wasn't this frozen pole. It was once connected to Australia. It had a temperate climate, even forests. Look at that. When the continent froze for good some 15 million years ago, the lake became trapped, isolated. And no, man, I didn't see this life, for crying out loud, man.
When will all these lies finally come to an end?
And what about the bacteria the Russians found? Well, for a long time, that question remained unanswered. But today we know there are indeed unknown species, or at least some not catalogued before. A bacterium found in 2012 initially didn't match anything previously known. They even considered it a new life form, exclusive to Vostok. Later, other laboratories suggested it might be external contamination. There was even a back and forth of announcements and skepticism. But in the end, people understood the lake holds a vast microbial biodiversity, even though much of it resembles microbes from other extreme environments, right? So there's no lake alien yet, but there's still much to study about these tiny organisms, okay? And they're so weird and slow, man. Can you imagine reproducing just once a century? That's right, scientists believe that the Vostok microbes have an incredibly slow metabolism, and they extract energy from tiny chemical fragments to survive in this environment, which has very little nutrition and absolutely no light. It's like life in slow motion, you know? To make a long story short, no megalodon, kraken, or alien appeared in Lake Vostok. I know you wanted that, but there aren't any. Up to now, all we have are microorganisms. The rumors about monsters and conspiracies have no basis whatsoever. That magnetic anomaly is probably just differentiated rock. But Lake Vostok's mystery hasn't been fully solved. Much research still needs to be done. Maybe they'll develop a more sophisticated drilling method. They could send a swimming robot in there, right? to film and collect deeper samples. That would be cool. Maybe new microbe species will be found, or perhaps a small adapted crustacean, right? Or a crab. But so far we have no proof of colossal monsters or deadly viruses about to escape. No, relax. So tell us, did you know about Lake Vostok's mysteries? Did you know these wild theories like telepathic killer octopi and alien bases? And what do you think? I wonder if deep in this glacial lake there could be something bigger than just some microbes. Or is that just too much to imagine? Could Atlas have come from there? Comment down below, tap here, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and comment new suggestions for the Nerd Curiosity segment. It's so great to know that you're with us on this project that keeps growing, right? You're part of this nerdy community. Thanks from the bottom of my heart. See you next time, everyone.